This happened a few years ago when I was in my early 20s working nights as an armed security guard to pay for college. My shifts ran from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., and that night I was exhausted but planned to visit a friend the next day. I stopped by a small convenience store to grab him a bottle of soda. Can't even remember what brand now. What happened in that parking lot, though, I'll never forget. Too tired to follow protocol, I tossed my pistol belt and holster onto the back seat instead of locking them in the trunk. My neighborhood was rough, and the store sat in a rundown strip mall under a flickering orange light. It was about 3:30 a.m., the lot nearly empty, when I walked back to my car and saw her stumbling out from behind the dark corner of some closed medical offices. She was young, maybe my age, with shoulder-length blonde hair and a white shirt covered in tiny pink flowers. Her eyes were wide with panic, and she was clutching something tight in her hand. At first, I thought it was a gun. My stomach dropped. "Shit," I muttered, freezing by my car door. Then she screamed, "He's following me!" Her voice cracked with pure fear as she stumbled toward me, nearly tripping over her own feet. "He's following me," she repeated, desperate, trembling. That's when I heard it, a sharp click. It wasn't a gun. Sparks flared from her hand. A stun gun. She waved it nervously in the air, the electric crackle echoing through the empty lot. "He's following me," she said again, almost in tears. I opened my car door slowly, trying to stay calm. "Who's following you?" I asked, scanning the shadows around the parking lot. The air felt heavy, the kind of stillness that makes your ears buzz. Then I saw him. From the same dark corner she'd come from, a man appeared. He was tall, really tall, built like a basketball player but with the shoulders of a linebacker. Bald head, sleeveless blue tank top, arms thick as tree trunks, and in his right hand, glinting under the flickering streetlight, was a knife. Not a pocket knife, but a big, ugly hunting knife, the kind meant for gutting a deer. "That's my piece," he said, voice low and steady, eyes locked on the girl. He didn't even look at me, just kept walking, boots scraping against the asphalt, each step measured, deliberate. The girl froze beside my car, gripping her stun gun so tight her knuckles turned white. "Is he with you?" I asked her, my voice tight. "Or is he the one following you?" She shook her head, eyes wide, tears forming. He's following me," she whispered. I pointed toward the convenience store, maybe 20 feet away. "Go inside. Tell them to call 911. She nodded quickly and sprinted for the store, her shoes slapping against the pavement. This was years before I had a cell phone, maybe 7 years before. So that was her best chance at help. The man, meanwhile, just kept walking toward me, muttering, "That's my piece," over and over like a broken record. His knife glimmered each time he stepped into the light. I reached into the back seat, grabbed my pistol belt, and strapped it around my waist. I turned slightly so he could see the holster, and rested my hand on my 9, hoping he'd get the message. But he didn't stop. He kept coming. "That's my piece," he repeated, calm and cold, like it meant something only he understood. My pulse quickened. My training kicked in. I'd served in the Army infantry, seen real combat, but this felt different. This wasn't a battlefield. This was a dirty parking lot at 3 a.m., and some lunatic was walking toward me with a hunting knife. When he was about 10 feet away, I drew my gun and aimed for his chest. "Here's my piece," I said. He froze, but he didn't drop the knife. His eyes locked on me, unblinking, the blade still raised at his side. The world around us seemed to shrink until it was just him and me, the tension so thick I could taste it. I kept my voice steady. "How about you go your way and have a good night?" Inside, I was praying he wouldn't make me pull the trigger. I'd seen enough death for one lifetime. I didn't want to add another face to that list, especially not over something this senseless. I cocked the hammer back, the metallic click cutting through the silence. "Go your way," I repeated, louder this time. "Have a good night." He stared at me for what felt like forever. Then finally, he took a step back. "Sorry, man," he said, his voice different now, almost small. "Thought you were somebody else." He lowered the knife, tucking it into his waistband, and slowly backed away toward the store. I kept my aim on him until he disappeared through the doors, then finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My hands were trembling as I holstered the gun. I got in my car, the bottle of soda still sitting on the passenger seat, untouched. Across the lot, on the far corner, another convenience store glowed under a separate light, one with a sheriff's cruiser parked right out front. I figured I should report what just happened, I drove over, parked next to the deputy's car, and walked up to him. He was leaning against his cruiser, sipping coffee, looking half asleep. "Officer," I started, "there's a guy across the lot with a knife, threatening people." He cut me off. "Bald guy? Blue tank top?" I froze. "Yeah, how'd you know?" He straightened, setting his cup on the hood. "We've been looking for him," he said flatly. "He's been causing trouble all week." Before I could even respond, the deputy jumped into his cruiser, lights flashing, and tore across the parking lot, tires screeching on the cracked asphalt. As I stood there under the flickering streetlight, I realized how close I'd come to something far worse. If I hadn't tossed my gear in the back seat that night, or stopped for that soda, I might not be here to tell the story at all. I drove home, watching the parking lot's dim light fade in my rearview mirror. I couldn't stop thinking how close that encounter had been. If I hadn't left my gun on the back seat, or if I'd hesitated for just a second, I might not be here right now. I never found out what happened to the girl or the man with the knife, but that night still haunts me. What would you have done in my place? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more true encounters like this, don't miss the next story waiting for you right here. I worked as a private security guard for a few retail stores on the edge of Salinas, California. The area was usually quiet and open shopping strips surrounded by empty fields and old warehouses. Most nights it was just petty thefts, trespassers, or checking the massive parking lot behind the Walmart Supercenter. Nothing ever happened out there until one spring morning in 2019. It was March 24th, a cold Sunday at 6 a.m. The air bit through my jacket as I started my patrol in the company truck. The sun was barely up, the asphalt shimmered faintly, and seagulls circled above the dumpsters. The back section of the parking lot had been mostly empty since Christmas, just a few abandoned cars and a couple of old vehicles that hadn't moved in months. But as I turned the truck toward the far corner, something caught my eye. A small gray Honda Civic parked near the old delivery area, half hidden behind a concrete pillar. It sat at an odd angle, like someone had parked in a hurry and never came back. I'd seen that car before, maybe once or twice in passing. I'd always figured it belonged to an employee pulling long shifts, or maybe someone sleeping in their car overnight. That wasn't unusual. Walmart parking lots tend to attract a few people down on their luck. But that morning something felt different. The car windows were fogged from the inside, streaked with dust and grime. The tires sagged low, almost flat, and a spiderweb stretched from the mirror to the door. It looked still. Forgotten. I stopped the truck about 15 feet away and rolled the window down. A faint sour smell drifted in. At first, it was subtle, like spoiled food, but then it hit me harder. It wasn't the usual dumpster odor. It was heavier, thicker, almost sweet in the worst way. My instincts told me something was wrong. I got out and started walking toward the car. Each step made the smell stronger and my stomach tightened. "Hello?" I called out. "Security, you all right in there?" No answer. I moved around to the driver's side, noticing the windshield was coated with a thick film of dust. The wipers had practically melted into the glass. I leaned closer, shielding my eyes from the glare. That's when I saw it. Faint shapes through the window. Something pale slumped across the front seat. I stepped closer, my pulse picking up. It wasn't just something. It was a person. A woman. She was sitting upright, her head tilted back, hands resting neatly in her lap as if she'd simply fallen asleep. But even through the hazy glass, I could see her skin had turned a dry, grayish color. My throat went dry. The whole world went quiet. No cars, no seagulls, no wind, just stillness. I took a few steps back and grabbed my radio, my voice shaking as I called it in. "Unit 3, I need police at the backlot now. Possible deceased occupant in a vehicle." Within 10 minutes, a patrol car pulled up. The officers taped off the area and told me to stay back while they checked. When one of them opened the door, the smell hit everyone at once. You never forget that kind of smell. It burns your throat and sticks in your hair. One of the officers just muttered, "Yeah, she's been here a while." Detectives arrived soon after. I gave my report and watched from a distance as they worked around the Honda, covering the windows with tarps, taking photos, logging evidence. Eventually, one of the officers came over and told me her name. Lauren Cho, 22 years old. She'd been reported missing 3 months earlier. She'd been sitting there in that car the whole time. 3 entire months. Right there in that same parking lot. where people came and went every single day. They told me the car went unnoticed because of the tinted windows, the angle it was parked, and how rarely anyone used that back section. People had parked just a few feet away, probably walked right past it, never realizing what was inside. When the coroner's team arrived, they opened the back door to remove her remains. A small purse sat on the passenger seat, beside a half-empty water bottle and a dead phone. It looked like she'd fallen asleep one night and never woken up. No signs of a struggle, no foul play, just a young woman who disappeared from her family's life, sitting silently in her car while the world kept turning around her. That image burned itself into my mind, the way the morning light hit the windshield, the stillness of her folded hands. For weeks after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I avoided that part of the lot, even when my patrol route was changed. Just driving past that area made my chest tighten. Eventually, Walmart had the car towed away after the investigation ended, but the stains where the tires had rested stayed there for months. Dark circles on the asphalt, impossible to ignore once you knew what they meant. I'd see shoppers walking right over that spot, pushing carts, talking on their phones, completely unaware. Word spread fast among the staff. People started remembering things. How they'd seen the same car parked there during the holidays, how it never moved, how some assumed it was abandoned. Even the night shift admitted they'd passed it dozens of times. None of us blamed them. Who would ever imagine something like that hiding in plain sight? When the story finally made the news, her family released a statement. They said they'd filed missing person reports, searched nearby cities, posted flyers everywhere. They couldn't understand how her car had sat in that parking lot for months in a place with cameras, guards, and daily patrols, without anyone noticing. Neither could I. And that's what haunts me most. Not the image itself, but the thought of how close we all were to her. Every day, life kept moving. People laughing, shopping, working, while she sat there in silence, just waiting to be found. That's what still haunts me. Not just finding her, but realizing how easily we all drive past things like that without ever noticing. Every night after that, I found myself checking the dark corners of the lot. Not for thieves, not for trespassers, but for silence. For still cars. For forgotten stories. Because once you've seen what can hide in a place full of people, you understand. The scariest things are always in the shadows. Sometimes they're sitting right in front of you, and you never even see them. My job's a regular 9-to-5 that often drags into late evenings. I work as a data analyst for a logistics company. Not exciting, but steady. The office sits in a quiet corporate park surrounded by empty parking lots. By day, it's full of life. At night, it feels abandoned. That Tuesday in late autumn, I stayed late finishing a report. When I finally hit send, I realized I was the last one there. Packed up, turned off the lights, and the whole place went dark, except for the green exit sign down the hall. My footsteps echoed as I walked to the lobby, where the night guard, Sam, gave me his usual friendly wave. "Working late again, huh?" Sam asked without looking up from his crossword. "Just tying up loose ends," I replied, forcing a tired smile. The glass doors slid open, and a rush of cold night air hit me. The sun had long since vanished, leaving only a starless black sky stretching over the silent corporate park. The parking lot glowed in scattered pools of orange light, the hum of the old lamps the only sound. Most of the lot was empty, creating a strange pattern of cars and dark voids that made everything look unfamiliar. That's when I realized I couldn't remember where I'd parked. Usually I parked in section C, but it had been full that morning, so maybe D or E? I clicked my key fob, waiting for the comforting flash of my car lights. Nothing. I was too far away. So I started walking, the crunch of my shoes echoing against the asphalt. Row after row I scanned. A silver sedan, a black SUV, a red hatchback. None were mine. The lamps stretched my shadow unnaturally long, twisting and swaying at the edge of my vision. A sudden gust of wind rustled a pile of leaves against a divider and I flinched. I laughed nervously, blaming it on exhaustion, but something about the stillness around me felt wrong. It was too quiet. I pressed the fob again. This time, a faint chirp. My headlights flashed 2 rows over, about 50 yards down. Relief washed through me. I picked up my pace, my bag bouncing on my shoulder. I was already picturing a hot shower, maybe a late snack. Bed. I reached the car and grabbed the handle, cold metal under my fingers, but then I stopped. No sound, no sight, just a feeling. A sudden, crushing instinct screamed, "Don't get in the car." My body froze, my heart pounded, but I didn't know why. Logic told me I was being ridiculous, just overtired, but that instinct was too strong to ignore. So I straightened up and turned around. He was right there, not 10 feet away, not even 3, 6 inches from my face. My breath caught in my throat. He had appeared out of nowhere, no footsteps, no sound, nothing. His face was inches from mine, and for a split second, we were eye to eye. His eyes were wide, empty, almost glassy. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking through me. His skin was pale, his hair messy, his hoodie gray and plain. He wasn't a monster from a movie, but somehow that made it worse. He looked real. And wrong. His posture was stiff, angled slightly forward, like a predator waiting to strike. I noticed the sour smell of sweat and dirty clothes. His jaw was clenched tight. My body locked up completely. Then something shifted. His expression changed, just slightly. Confusion, then irritation. It was like my noticing him ruined something. Without a word, he broke eye contact, turned sharply to the left, and started walking away. Not running, just walking. Slow, deliberate. The sound of his shoes scraping the pavement echoed like a heartbeat. He disappeared behind a row of cars, swallowed by the dark. A choice to move. My heart was hammering so violently I thought I'd faint. Finally, I turned and ran, sprinting back toward the office, lungs burning, never daring to look behind me. I burst through the glass doors, nearly knocking them off track. Sam jumped up, his coffee spilling over the desk. "Hey, what happened?" I couldn't even speak, I just stood there shaking. Later, I told him everything. The man, the distance, the look. He promised to keep watch on the cameras and patrol the lot more often. For weeks after, I left work strictly at 5, never alone. I tried to forget it, to rationalize it. Maybe he was just another late worker or a drunk who wandered in, but deep down I knew better. The closeness of his face, the silence before I turned, it wasn't random. He had been waiting. A month later, I had to stay late again. A server crash, everyone was tense. By the time we fixed it, it was past 9. I walked out with 2 IT guys, laughing nervously about how we'd never stay this late again. When we reached their cars, one of them asked, "You good from here?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm parked just over in D, I'll be fine." They waved and drove off. The second their taillights disappeared, the familiar silence swallowed everything again. I gripped my keys tightly and walked fast, eyes scanning ahead. Then I saw it. My car. And someone standing next to the driver's door. It was him. Same gray hoodie. Same hunched posture. He had his back to me, jiggling the handle of my car door. My blood went cold. It wasn't random. He had found my car before. He had remembered. I must have made a sound because he froze. Slowly, his head turned toward me. And that face? I'll never forget it. His eyes locked on mine and pure rage twisted his expression. He wasn't startled. He was furious. He pulled something from his hoodie pocket, a knife. The orange parking light caught the blade, making it gleam like fire. Then he started running, straight at me, knife low, body leaning forward like an animal ready to strike. I didn't think, I just ran. My bag hit the pavement behind me as I screamed, sprinting toward the main road. The sound of his footsteps pounded closer and closer behind me. My lungs burned and I could hear his breath short, sharp, angry. Then, headlights. A police cruiser turned the corner, its lights cutting across the lot. I stumbled into the road, waving my arms, shouting for help. The car screeched to a stop and 2 officers jumped out. I pointed back, gasping for air. "Hey man, he has a knife! He tried to get into my car!" One officer stayed with me while the other drew his gun and ran toward the parking lot. But when they searched, he was gone. No sign of him anywhere, just the quiet hum of the lamps, the rows of cars, and the dark spaces between them. For days after, I couldn't sleep. The thought kept looping in my head. If I hadn't turned around that first night, if I'd opened that door, I wouldn't be here now. The police took my statement and searched the whole parking lot. They checked the cameras, but the footage was too blurry. You could see a figure in a gray hoodie, but never his face. They said they'd follow up if they found anything. They never did. To this day, I still don't know who he was or why he chose me. Sometimes I wonder if he's still out there, waiting for someone else to turn their back. What would you have done if it were you? Tell me in the comments, and if you want more true close encounter stories, stay tuned for the next one.